it's early in the morning. It is early in the morning. It's not even 7 o'clock yet. So I decided I have some time. I'll record a podcast now, and I thought I'd do it stationary because last week and a few of the weeks I've recorded these while driving along in the Peugeot Partner, but I don't think the old NVH levels in the old Peugeot Partner lend itself to good acoustics for recording a podcast. It's a van. It's a cheap French van, so it's not one of its strong points. Noise levels and acoustics, and also I don't want to do a walkie around one because that gets quite breathy. Normally I think I should just do them in my house for best acoustic quality. Although I think this parked up in the van isn't too bad. If you take out the engine and road noise, I think it's acceptable enough, and you get a little bit of background cars moving around to give that automotive ambience. Rambling away as normal. While I'm talking about the Peugeot Partner, just one thing I just didn't really cop until this morning when I was listening to a podcast on my morning commute, is it has a couple of little dongle things behind the steering wheel. The one on the left is for the cruise control, which is baffling, and then the one on the right hand side is the audio controls, which is the usual volume up, down, scan through tracks, stations and all. One thing I didn't realise when you listen to podcast is if you use the skip track function, because obviously podcasts tend to be long format, rather than skipping like the whole podcast, what I'll do is it'll just jump ahead by 10 seconds or vice versa, reverse by 10 seconds, which is very handy because if you miss something you can just flick back 10 seconds. Or if what I find most convenient about the feature is that when ads come along, you can just skip ahead by 10 seconds. And maybe it's more than 10 seconds, maybe it's 30 seconds. All I know is it's exactly, if you listen to the Autocar My Week in Cars podcast presented by Matt Pryor and Steve Cropley, which comes out on a Wednesday. That's what I was listening to this morning. It's a good podcast, worth a listen. They have a standardized ad. It's not the one interjected by Acast or whoever else is your podcast provider. It's one put in by themselves, by Haymarket. It's an ad for What Car magazine, which does anyone still read What Car magazine? But there you go. And Matt Pryor, goes, we're about to just take a quick break, then come back and join us. So as soon as you hear the ad start, if you flick it, it skips the ad perfectly and it kicks back in to Matt Pryor welcoming you back from the ad break. Just a handy little feature. So in case you're considering your next van purchase, all right, I assume it's from any. So this is a 2000 and what year is this? This is a 2021 Peugeot Partner. I don't know if Stellantis, because they now own Peugeot and all the rest of the former PSA brands. I don't know if they've carried over these dash controls or steering column controls. But anything previous Stellantis anyway will definitely have them. So anything from the PSA group will have them. So if that's a selling feature to you for your next city runabout or commercial transport vehicle, there you go. I think the skip function on the audio controls, talking absolute bollocks. Very quiet motoring week. Again, didn't do any events. I know most of the Cars and Coffees, as they are, tend to be on the first Sunday of every month. Would have been on weekend just gone, but I was in work on Saturday and I was very, very tired. I couldn't drag myself out of bed, and it wasn't exactly the most beautiful Sunday morning either, so I didn't attend anything. And chances are, now look, if you saw anything interesting at Cars and Coffee at the weekend, do let me know. But having attended them over the years, it tends to be just the same 30 or 40 cars that you see every month. Not that there's any harm in that, but there's only so many times you can see the same Toyota Corolla estate Jap import that some guys spit shined because it's his pride and joy, which again, all power to you, but it's hard to get enthused. Did I see anything? I saw a Bentley Arnage T late last week on the keys, which was nice to see, because that's, although the Arnage T, whatever the final series, whatever they called it, was a Volkswagen Audi group breathed upon Bentley. It was still the old design pre-merger of the companies. I say merger, the acquisition of Bentley by VAG. So it's similar to say like the Diablo GT. It's old money design, but with some of the flaws ironed out by a large OEM manufacturer. It was in a nice kind of, I suppose, a dark navy, royal blue, whatever kind of colour you want to call it. Colour was very nice, and like that's a Bentley to me. I know like new Bentleys, Volkswagen Audi Group Bentleys now are they're lovely things. The Continental GT has only gotten better with age. All the Volkswagen Audi Group era Bentleys are great, Bentayga aside. But the Arnage, that's to me, that defines what a Bentley should be, more so than more of the modern stuff. Although the Mulsanne, the Volkswagen Audi Group generation Mulsanne, which is no longer in production, is a fantastic thing. But yeah, nice to see an Arnage. I don't know, did I see anything else really of note? I don't think I did. It's been a very, very, very quiet week. It's because we're into winter now as well. Like a lot of the really nice stuff will be tucked away, and we're getting into the real manky, cold, wet winter. So yeah, not much in that sense. One thing I did notice, again, this is only yesterday I noticed, and it's something I've noticed a bit over the last few months. Now again, this is probably just me just spending too much time on the road and picking up on things that no one else really would. But I've noticed occasionally, especially on motorways, if you don't have recirculation on, so you have air coming in from the outside, that when you're driving along, you get this pissy smell when you're driving along, a dual carriageway or a motorway. It's very, very faint. It's not like overpowering, like you've just wet yourself and it's seeped into the upholstery. But it's just this mild, pissy smell. And I am going to assume it's the ammonia burning off from AdBlue in modern diesel cars. If anyone else has a more logical explanation, if that isn't logical enough, do let me know. AdBlue's got to be like, you have to put AdBlue into this van. But look, that's not my problem. This has a fuel card. But for someone who's running their own vehicle, it'll be a pain in the hole. I think it's every 10,000 kilometers you have to put it in. And not most pumps have it, or fuel stations have it at pumps. So you have to buy a big plastic container and fiddle around with a nozzle and stick it into a tiny little hole beside the fuel cap, because it has to be smaller so you don't put petrol in there and blah blah blah. Surely they could just, maybe I'm wrong, maybe because it wouldn't work in older diesels or it's detrimental to older diesel or something, but surely they could put a small percentage into diesel and just have it in the diesel when you fill up. I don't know, I'm not an engineer, someone can tell me differently. I just noticed that see if you notice it if you're driving along motorways and have the vents open. If you get this pissy smell, it probably won't be as common as time goes on because people are turning away from diesels. But yeah, these are the inane things that I notice and then drivel onto you in this terrible podcast. Something else which I noticed this morning was placement of dash and or windscreen accessories, i.e. dash cams, mobile phone holders, sat navs. I have a tiny, which I have here, just stuck onto the air vent, a tiny little magnetic thing. So there's a little magnet on the back of my phone case, so it just sticks to the center console. It's low down, it's out of sight. If I need it, I can turn on for Google Maps, whatever. It's down, like, in the center console, as if it was a touch screen on a car, which is shit, but phones are phones. But some of the placement I see people, like, I hate having any clutter on the windscreen. Like if I do, like, long ago with the days of using an actual sat nav, but if I had one, it was tucked right down in the bottom right hand corner, or obviously on the content left hand corner. It's there. You can just kind of just dip your eye down to it just to keep an eye, but it's not cluttering up the windscreen. Same with like tax disc and insurance holders, tucked right down in the corner. You see some people with like their phone holders like stuck like right in the center of the windscreen, and like dash cams in like the center of the windscreen. like completely in your eye line, and it's like in the middle of like it's so intrusive, and it's definitely blocking some of your sight lines. And the reason this stuck out to me was like early this morning driving in, it was still dark, obviously. It still is dark now. There was a woman I could see, she had it in the centre of the windscreen, and I could see clearly she was watching a YouTube video. So she's watching a YouTube video in the middle of her windscreen while she's driving. And just to add to the disgrace of this situation, she was watching the YouTube video in portrait. I don't know. As I said before, the barrier to entry to operating a motor vehicle is way too low. It's ridiculous. And then another thing that just grinded my gears driving this morning was I was coming up a road in Rathmines, Ranelagh, Rathgar, Ramo, whatever, one of the Ors. I think Beechwood Road, I think it was called. It's a residential street with terraced houses either side, and like on-street parking because no one has driveways. And I had to go up that road, but I had to turn around and come back out, and then because it's one way, I had to go back out the wrong way, simply because, so like, admittedly, these people were parked as close to the curb as they could be, in the parking bays in front of the houses, but it was an XC90. And then on the other side of the road was that fucking electric BMW thing that looks like a melted X5. Was it the iX? Is that what it's called? Two giant cars, unnecessarily large cars, parked on either side of the road. As parked as well as they could be, admittedly. But because they were parked between each other, there wasn't enough space for me to get through in this one-way street. It reminds me of a Limmy video. Limmy, the Scottish comedian. Wrong way down a one-way street. Check that out on YouTube. So I couldn't get it. I followed my mirrors in, but still it was too tight because I couldn't get by then the mirrors of both the BMW and the Volvo. I think the Volvo had theirs folded in as well. They might have both actually had them folded in. Yeah, it was just like the two cars were too wide for the skinny road for me then to get down in my van, and I had to then go the wrong way. Now early in the morning, thankfully there was nothing coming, but I had to go the wrong way down a one-way street. Stop. Check out that video. So like obnoxiously large cars in urban environments, it's ridiculous. And actually similar earlier on as well, it's like someone was backing out of a driveway onto a main road, from their driveway, backing out onto a main road, and because they were backing out, they couldn't see. It was me and several other cars coming up the road, and they pulled out right in front. That was the car in front of me. Pulled out right in front of the car, which had to jam on, which caused all of us to jam on. And no one rear-ended anyone, but like, I know they had to get out of their driveway, and these things are difficult to do. You can't see past pillars and bushes and stuff. But I know like maybe you can't get the opportunity, but. And like again, I'm being facetious here, but it's like you can't choose where you live. Unfortunately, these days, decisions of where you live is often, decided by financial factors rather than where you want to live. But if I lived in a house, which I personally wouldn't choose a house with a driveway that backs onto a main road, it's just a pain in the arse. You're going to get stuck in traffic, or it's just hard to get in and out of. But if I did have a driveway that backed onto a main road, I would absolutely reverse into my driveway. Or if you're able to, at least then when you turn in, maneuver the car around so that it's then you can drive out forwards, because it's just a hazard. It's ridiculous. I don't understand why people do it. But there you go. There's another thing that grinds my gears. I'll stop talking nonsense now. I've been recording for 13 minutes and talked absolute horse manure as usual. Anything going on in the motoring world? I see. Speaking of obnoxious BMWs. The BMW is the XM, that XM Rose Gold or whatever the fuck. The giant, horrendous, ugly, obnoxious, overly powered BMW SUV. There's one knocking around near where I live. I think I put a picture of it up on my Instagram. Horrendous looking thing. They're celebrating the fact that they've claimed the record. Up Pikes Peak for a production SUV, which talk about a record that who gives a toss. I know it's marketing, and there's people who drive XMs be like, oh yeah, I've got the fastest SUV out there, man. Yeah, what a going back to the cars part, like cars are just getting too fucking big. Nobody needs cars as big as they are. It's ridiculous. My sister just bought a whatever current generation Hyundai Santa Fe because she needs something for the dog to go into. But it's an obnoxiously large car. Speaking of loving, there's a G-Wagon going by. Here's not this. That noise you're hearing is a bin lorry. Well, you could mistake a G-Wagon for a bin lorry. Cars are just getting too big, and that thing, like that BMW thing, is just burn it, ban it. Shit like that should be banned. For many reasons. Speaking of records as well, Rimac, whatever way you want to call it. The Navara, again, another meaningless record, but they have claimed the record for the fastest EV going in reverse. And they did 170 miles an hour in reverse. Wow. There's a headline grabber if ever there was one. And then some interesting, if you think to find something, some EV news. Kia are gone real bullish with they want to fast forward autonomous driving and make autonomous driving legal. Now, where do I sit on autonomous driving? If it can be, we've seen like with safety features on modern vehicles, execution is pretty terrible. So autonomous vehicles, like there's so many ethical and safety considerations that have to be made, and obviously early doors there's going to be flaws. If it can be well executed, I think it will be a welcome feature for something. So, like as I said, a barrier to entry for people driving. There's a lot of people out there who can't drive well, so them using autonomous vehicles, if the technology can be executed perfectly, which I have my doubts about, but if it can, yes. And stuff like my mother, she's 77 years old. She doesn't like driving. She's yet to pass her test. She's done her test 9 times. She's on a provisional license. She has to hang up her boots soon enough, but she does need to go places occasionally. Other than the fact she's not a great driver, for her age, she still is of sound body and mind. So where's this lad going in his 5 Series? He's backing in behind me. So for something like that, for elderly people, autonomous vehicles would be a good thing. But one, yes, I think there has to be stringent testing and regulation about the safety and ethical nuances of the technology. It shouldn't be rushed, as Kia literally said they want to push this forward. But also, I insist that it has to be optional. Like, we can't all be driving around in autonomous vehicles. One, because rise of the machines, they will kill us eventually. But two, I like driving, and I also like the freedom, and I personally won't be pushed into modern vehicles anytime soon. Until stuff is outlawed, I will stick with the old school. Not that I'm a Luddite. Like, I would have an EV that once I can drive it myself, with as minimal amount of nannying safety features as possible, I'd be okay with that. But I do like combustion engines, and I will use them as long as I can. But I do also want to be able to drive myself as long as I can. So that's that. That's what do you think about autonomous driving? Do let me know. And then there's like this Chinese company NIO, who are a new, I wouldn't say a startup, they've been around for a while in China, but one of these newer EV manufacturers. They have a system. They have a system in China, and it is in parts of Europe. I've never seen it now, but they are going to be bringing it to the UK, which means maybe Ireland will see it too. They have battery stations that you can pull into, and the autonomous driving will pull you into the battery station. The whole thing happens autonomously. They will take the battery pack out, replace it with a fully charged battery pack, do a test, a health check on it, and then away you go. The whole thing takes 2.5 minutes, which seems like a neat solution to charging and range anxiety in the present. But the way electric vehicles and battery technology is advancing, it does feel like a short-term solution to an issue of electric vehicles. I'd like to see it. It'd be a fun thing to experience it being done, but it seems like an awful lot of infrastructure and investment in something that probably won't be a thing for much longer. But an interesting solution. Better than sitting around in a fucking petrol station for fucking 45 minutes just trying to get fucking 60% charge if you can find a charger. I don't know how. I think they can only store something like 30 batteries at a go, and then they're charged overnight. So, I don't think I've ever seen a Neo. Maybe I have and just don't recognise them. But yeah, an interesting feature. Is it necessary? Hard to know. And then a final little bit of electric vehicle chatter. There's a Chinese company which called Leap Motor, which have been purchased, I believe, by Stellantis, who make these very small and affordable electric vehicles. They have this tiny little thing. It's kind of like a kind of K car sized. Which is a horrible looking car, the Fiat 500L, but much smaller, kind of in aesthetics. And then the proportions are kind of K car sized. It's slightly bigger than a K car, but it's an urban environment vehicle. As 174 mile, which whatever that is in kilometers. Sorry, excuse me, bourbon. 200 or something or so kilometers range, and it sells in China for the equivalent of £7,500 sterling. So what about 10 grand? So it's interesting because they're going to start selling it in the UK, which means again we might see it here in Ireland. Probably by the time you put everything on it, I don't know how much it would cost here with fucking registration tax and exchange rates, but a 10 grand, well, like 7.5 grand sterling brand new electric vehicle. Now I assume it's quite Spartan. I'm sure you're not getting all the luxuries, but for something as a city runabout, because I am all for electric vehicles in urban environments, I really am. That could be a great solution, rather than going for these overly priced, too big vehicles that people are driving currently. So check that out. The Leap Motor, I think it's called the C0, but just type in Leap Motor. I'm sure you'll get it pretty quickly. I am running out of time, so I am technically on the clock and work here, so I'll have to start wrapping this up. It'll be a short enough episode, probably about half an hour long. So I have to talk about motorsport. Quick one on the WEC. It was the final round of the WEC, won by Toyota number 8. I can't remember actually the top 3, which is retarded of me. I should be looking this stuff up before I start recording. I do know the number 7 got punted off at the start by the Cadillac, which qualified quite well, but the Cadillac locked up and spun out the 7. The 7 had a slight chance if it won the race to beat the 8 to the championship, but the number 8 car was always going to win. Brendan Hartley, Kamui, and who else is in that car? Again, I should look this stuff up. But yeah, so it's the end of the championship. So Toyota won all the rounds bar Le Mans, due to controversial kind of rule fiddling by the ACO. Here is a Ferrari, what do you call it? GTC 4 Lusso. Whoa, can you hear it? Don't know if you could hear that there. Lovely V12. It's on Northern Irish plates. Because why would you register a Ferrari here if you have the means not to? But I think it was the last race as well then in the World Endurance Championship for LMP2 cars, which would be sad to see because LMP2 provided some great racing, and the LMGTE, the closely related to road car division of endurance racing, so the 911 RSR and the Aston Martin GTE and the Corvette and stuff like that. Now they're being replaced by GT3 cars, which will be cool. As far as I'm aware, most of the manufacturers are, Porsche, Ferrari will be there, right? I'm not sure if Aston Martin are going to be there next year, but Aston Martin are going to be coming back. Chevrolet will be there with the Corvette, amongst others. But the final LMGTE race winners were the Iron Dames team in their 911 RSR. So it's great to see the 911 take the final victory, because the 911 is the 911, and an all-female crew. to win a WEC race, which is great to see, because I am all for ladies in motorsport, as I'm sure most of us are. I'm not sure the age of the ladies. They're not old, obviously, but I don't know. They might be slightly too old to be considering a single seater career. But just, because obviously the pinnacle of motorsport, although some people do disagree, but it is the pinnacle of motorsport, is Formula One. And we do all want to see a female Formula One driver. It would be great for everyone involved. We don't want to see a token lady put in just because she's a lady. We want someone there because they can take it to the lads, and there's no reason why a female racing driver couldn't. I've always spoke about this before. It's just a numbers thing. There aren't as many girls involved as there are boys. But hopefully it does happen soon. So something like this, the victory by the Iron Dames team, might hopefully inspire some other young ladies to get into motorsport, because I don't think there's anyone really coming through the junior ranks that is being tipped to make it to Formula One. But yes, more female drivers, a mixed gender grid in Formula One, I would like to see, because there's no physical limitations, unlike some other sports that ladies couldn't get involved in motor racing. So speaking of Formula One, then we had the Brazilian Grand Prix. Sprint race was a bit predictable, not a whole lot happened. Max won. Lando started on pole, but Max got him at the very start. Oh, there was was that the main race, or was it yes, Lando was on pole, but Max got him into the first corner, and then it was kind of just par for the course. Then the Mercedes chewed up its tires, went backwards. The podium for the sprint race was Max, Lando, and Checo. Checo had a decent weekend after his recent troubles. Then the main race, the start was a bit chaotic. Charles Leclerc had some sort of mechanical issue, and he spun off on the formation lap, which was annoying. And then the actual start, Albon kind of got squeezed by the two Haas, and Hulkenberg clipped him, and then he ended up clipping Magnussen. Bit of a messy, they all kind of spun off, hit the wall. I think it was Magnussen who kind of rear-ended Piastri, and then an errant tyre, which was a bit of a safety concern, which I'm sure will be investigated further. An errant tyre flew through the air and hit Daniel Ricciardo's rear wing. Thankfully didn't hit him, broke his rear wing. All that melee caused a red flag, which so everyone was brought into the pit lane. It meant that the cars that were damaged, there's an old 911 with a whale tail. Nice. Red, proper braces, city boy, London 911. So Piastri's car was able to be fixed, Ricciardo's car was able to be fixed, Hulkenberg's car was able to be fixed, Magnussen was able to continue. The damage to his car was okay, it was fine. Charles's car wasn't able to get back to the pits in time because it was taken off to the side, and there's not many good access roads around Sao Paulo, which is a fantastic racetrack. It just has some of the best racing. We saw it in the sprint and in the main race. You can follow, you can take different lines, you can battle. It's great racetrack. It's on the calendar until 2030, thankfully. Hopefully long live the Brazilian Grand Prix. It's brilliant. Because they worked on Piastri and Ricciardo's car in the garages, they had to start from the pit lane, and they essentially then were a lap down. So that really needs to be kind of looked into, because they worked on Hulkenberg's car in the pit lane itself, in the queue of cars. He was able to take the normal start. In all the melee, Lando, who had his qualifying scuppered due to the rain in qualifying, he should have started further up. I think he started 6th, but all the melee he ended up 2nd for the restart. He did challenge Max early on in the race, but it was one chance that he had, and he didn't manage to make it stick. And then after that, Max just controlled the pace. Lando was kind of all alone in 2nd. Third place was Alonso and Stroll had a pretty decent qualifying. They got lucky with the rain because they got out early, so they qualified 3rd and 4th. So Alonso managed to hold 3rd, and he was in 3rd for the entire race. for most of the race. He was pulling away. The Mercs started to go backwards again because of their tyre deg. Eventually, Russell had to retire due to some sort of mechanical issue. And Sainz was kind of a lowly fifth throughout the race. But Perez eventually came through and was in fourth, and he was charging after Alonso for lap after lap after lap. And Alonso was just very clever coming out of the final corner, taking a wider line. And he managed to get more traction, which meant he was able to pull a gap going down the pit straight that Perez wasn't close enough to him to use the DRS to get him going into one at the end of into turn one, or close enough to get him into turn 4. Then on lap 70, Perez finally did get past Alonso, and we're like, Alonso pulling off one of his great defensive drives, something he's just spectacular at. And Perez got ahead, and we thought that was it. Perez gets the final podium position. But then on the last lap 71, Alonso saw an opportunity to get Perez again with DRS into turn 4, and he made the move. It was tight. He made it stick, and then they had a drag to the line coming out of the final corner, and Alonso just beat Perez by 0.058 of a second to get third place. Back on the podium. It was great to see. It was a great battle, great respect between the two drivers. I wouldn't say it's a turn of form for Aston. They just had a good weekend, reverting back to their old car. I still think McLaren will have them for fourth in the Constructors' Championship. But it was great to see Alonso back on the podium. It was a great podium. Max obviously looked well deserved. He's the king of the crop at the moment. Lando at a very well deserved second. And it was great to see Alonso up there in third. Perez, decent weekend after his recent troubles in fourth. Sainz was fifth. Sixth was, I think, possibly Gasly. Seventh, I think, was Tsunoda. Eighth was Hamilton. Ninth was Ocon, I think. And 10th, I'll have to go back through that again. But great racing in Interlagos. Next race is going to be Vegas. Some people are like, oh yeah, I can't believe diehard fans, which, look, I'll wait until the race actually happens before I make any judgment on it. But a lot of diehard fans are like, oh my god, I can't believe they're going to Vegas, going to strip, Americanizing Formula 1. Blah, blah. Let's not forget that Formula 1 did race in Vegas before, in the mid to late 80s for I think 3 or 4 seasons in the Caesar Palace car park. It was terrible, hence why it didn't stay on the calendar. But everyone's just kind of like, oh my god, Formula 1's selling it. I was like, this has always been Formula 1. Formula 1's always done things like this. It's always wanted to try and break America. It's having its best chance at doing that at the moment. We'll see how the Vegas race works out. It's going to be a spectacle. It's strange. They're having it it'll be at night in Vegas. So it's going to be quite cold, they reckon. It's going to be possibly 4 degrees. So I think maybe they should look at swapping Vegas with Qatar next year, because it was too hot in Qatar. It's going to be possibly too cold in Vegas. The track layout, I don't know, it doesn't look great, but again, we shall see. No point in judging these things until they happen. It'll be on 6 a.m. our time, due to the way they're having it at 9 p.m. Saturday night in Vegas. So we'll see. It's not this weekend, it's the weekend after, so I won't talk too much about it. So I'll start wrapping some next. I'm at 33 minutes, and I do actually have to do some work now in a moment. So I'll wrap up. I don't have a YouTube channel this week because I think I've exhausted YouTube channel recommendations. There's only so many ones that are worth recommending. Or I've also pared back how much YouTube I watch, because I don't know how. I have nothing going on in my life, and I don't know how people find time to watch all the shitty TV programs and shit that's on YouTube and blah blah blah. Anyway, don't have a YouTube channel. The music, I'll recommend. You've probably all heard this, and you've been living under a rock if you haven't been aware of it. But I'm not a huge Beatles fan or anything. I appreciate their music. So a lot of music, I'm just stuff from the past. I'm a bit of a Philistine simply because I like music of the current. I like to be involved while it's in the here and now. But look, I do appreciate the Beatles. They are a legendary group, and they changed music. You could argue. Anyway, they brought out what will be the last new Beatles song. It's from a demo that John Lennon recorded back in the day. They tried to remake it back in the 90s with George, who's unfortunately no longer with us. But but they've with technology advancing, they gave it another go. And at first I wasn't sure, but it's really grown on me. It is a very beautiful song. So the last ever Beatles song, what's it called? Now and Then? I think that's what it's called, isn't it? Yeah. No, I'm sure everyone's heard it, but if you haven't, do yourself a favour and check it out. It's a momentous period in music history, the final ever new Beatles song. And then my classified find of the week, it's you go on Dundee, search 1989 Mini Sky Rose Pink, because that's the description on the ad. I assume it's been resprayed because it's a lovely paint job if you're into pink cars. Sky Rose Pink is the colour. Look, I'm down with it. It'll be fine, real men drive pink cars. Pink with a white roof. 1989 Mini. It looks to be in immaculate condition. And it's NCT'd until December next year, so you have to assume it's not structurally rusty. Only has 98,000 kilometres on the clock. As I said, it's NCT'd and taxed. And it's classic. It's 1989. $5,500 looking for it. It's in Dublin, which seems like decent value to me for a classic Mini. I know it's not cheap, but classic Minis aren't going to get cheaper. So I don't know. Maybe just some wiggle room there. Bring it down to $5,000. Get yourself a classic Mini. Again, if you're comfortable with driving a pink one, which I would, check that out. You'll find it. It's definitely the only classic pink Mini on Dundee. So I'll wrap it up there now. When I'm at 36 minutes, because I have to go back to work, and I've now knocked this out of the park. Terrible as always, but short and sweet at least this week. So if you have been listening, I love you as always. Until I talk to you again, be safe, be well. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.